It was early in the morning when the little girl ran out of the small house she shared with her mother. Her tiny feet slapped the concrete sidewalk as she sprinted, tears streaming down her cheeks, and her voice quivered as she shouted over and over, "Please, follow me home. Please." People passing by froze, unsure what to do, and some called out to her, but she didn't stop. The fear in her eyes made everyone pause. She didn't even glance at the street. All that mattered was getting to the police. The neighborhood was quiet, the usual hum of morning life replaced by a tense silence as neighbors watched her dash down the street. Children on their way to school stopped to stare, their small faces showing curiosity mixed with concern. The girl's hair was messy, strands sticking to her tear-streaked face. Her clothes were wrinkled, the simple dress she wore fluttering as she ran. But she didn't care. She was thinking only about her mother, about the danger she sensed, even though she couldn't fully explain it. At the police station, a group of officers were having their routine morning briefing when the little girl burst through the doors. She didn't even wait for anyone to speak. "Please, please, you have to come with me. Something's wrong at my house," she cried, her voice breaking. The officers looked at each other, startled. One of them quickly knelt down to her level, trying to calm her. "It's okay. We're coming with you. Can you show us where your house is?" The girl nodded frantically, tugging at the officer's uniform with small, trembling hands. "Hurry, please. My mom. She needs help," she sobbed. There was no time to ask too many questions. The officer grabbed his radio and called for backup, while the other officers quickly followed the girl outside. The morning air was cool, and her sobs echoed down the street. The neighbors were beginning to gather, whispering among themselves, their faces full of worry and fear. No one knew exactly what was happening, but the panic in her eyes told them it was serious. As they approached her house, the officers noticed that the small garden in front was untouched, the gate slightly open. Something felt off. The girl stopped for a moment at the gate, panting, and pointed inside. "It's in there. Please, hurry," she said, her voice pleading. The officers exchanged glances, sensing that whatever awaited them inside was urgent. The girl's courage in running all the way to the station was remarkable for someone so young, but it also hinted at the seriousness of the situation. The officers carefully stepped inside, their eyes scanning every corner. The house was small but tidy, with signs of everyday life. A kettle on the stove, clothes neatly folded on a chair, books stacked on a small table, but there was an unusual quiet. The girl stayed close to the officer, holding his hand tightly, her knuckles white with fear. She kept whispering, "Mom, Mom." As they moved deeper into the house, one of the officers noticed the mother lying on the floor in the living room. At first, it seemed she was just resting, but the way she was sprawled unnaturally, her breathing shallow, immediately set off alarms. The officer rushed forward and checked her pulse. It was weak, erratic, and it became clear she needed help fast. The girl's small voice echoed in the room, calling for her mother, and her sobs grew louder as she watched the officer gently lift her mother and lay her on a mat while another officer called for an ambulance. The little girl couldn't stop shaking. She had never seen her mother like this. Her mother, who was always strong, always working, always making sure there was food and warmth in the house, now looked so fragile. The sight was terrifying. She kept hugging the officer's leg, whispering, "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't know this would happen." Her words were full of guilt, though she had done nothing wrong. She had only acted out of love, out of instinct to protect her mother. While waiting for the ambulance, the officers tried to comfort her, speaking softly, explaining that help was on the way. She listened, nodding occasionally, but her eyes never left her mother. She kept asking questions, wanting to know if her mother would be okay, if everything would be fine. Each answer brought a little relief, but her fear didn't completely fade. This was her safe place, her home, and seeing it threatened, even for a moment, had shaken her deeply. The neighbors had started to gather outside, their faces full of concern and sympathy. They whispered to each other, exchanging worried glances. Some had seen the girl running to the police. Others had noticed the unusual quiet in the house that morning. Now, seeing the emergency response unfold, they began offering help. Someone fetched blankets. Another ran to get water, and a few stayed close, hoping their presence would provide comfort. The ambulance arrived quickly, its siren cutting through the quiet street. The paramedics rushed inside, taking over from the police. They worked swiftly to stabilize the mother, checking her vitals, giving her oxygen, and preparing her for transport to the hospital. The little girl watched, holding one of the officer's hands, her small frame tense, her mind racing. She wanted to go with her mother to make sure she was safe, but the paramedics gently explained that she could not go in the ambulance. She nodded, understanding, though it broke her heart. As the ambulance doors closed and the vehicle sped away, the little girl stayed behind with the officers. Her body was trembling, her tears wetting the sleeve of the officer she held onto. The officers knelt beside her, speaking softly, reassuring her that her mother would get the care she needed. One of them even offered to sit on the sidewalk with her, making small talk, trying to distract her from the fear and worry that had consumed her. In that moment, the little girl felt a mix of fear, guilt, and hope. She had acted bravely, running to the police despite her fear, and now she could only wait. Waiting was hard. Her young mind struggled with the complexity of the situation. Her mother, who always protected her, now needed protection herself. But she also began to understand something important. She could make a difference, even in the face of danger. Her actions had brought help to her mother, and that gave her a small sense of strength and purpose. Neighbors continued to gather, some whispering words of encouragement, others offering quiet support. The officers remained by her side, patient and kind, answering her endless questions, explaining what was happening in terms she could understand. They reassured her that her mother was in capable hands and that the most important thing she had done was exactly what needed to be done. She had acted quickly and courageously. As the morning progressed, the little girl began to calm down slightly. Her sobs became softer, her breathing steadier. She realized that although the situation was frightening, she had done something extraordinary. She had faced her fear and sought help, showing a maturity beyond her years. And though the road ahead for her mother's recovery was uncertain, the first and most critical step had been taken. By mid-morning, the street returned to a semblance of normalcy, though the tension still lingered. The little girl stayed with the officers, wrapped in a blanket and sipping water, occasionally looking toward the ambulance as it disappeared down the road. She whispered a quiet prayer for her mother's safety, holding on to the hope that she would be okay. And deep down, she knew that she had done something incredible. She had been brave when it mattered most, and that bravery had made a difference. Even as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its warm light over the quiet street, the memory of fear and urgency lingered. But alongside it was a newfound sense of courage, of knowing that even the smallest person could take big actions when it mattered. And for the little girl, this day would mark a turning point. A day when she realized that love and bravery could shine brightest in moments of uncertainty and danger. The officers stayed close to the little girl as they returned to the house, their senses alert and cautious. Every step they took felt heavy, as if the air inside the small home carried the weight of what might have happened. The neighbors watched from a distance, their faces lined with worry, some clutching their phones, hoping to capture news to share with relatives and friends. The girl led the way, her tiny hands trembling slightly as she held onto the sleeve of the officer who walked beside her. Her voice was quiet now, but she kept whispering, urging them, "Please hurry. You'll see." The house, which from the outside seemed ordinary and calm, now felt like it held secrets behind its closed doors. The officers noticed small details that hinted at the challenges the family faced. Dishes left in the sink from the night before, a small pile of laundry in the corner, and a few scattered toys on the floor. These simple things painted a picture of a home that was lived in but also one that carried the weight of hard work and constant struggle. The little girl, despite her fear, was determined to lead the officers straight to where her mother was. She walked with urgency, her small feet making soft thuds against the wooden floorboards, her heart racing. As they entered the main room, the officers were met with silence that felt heavy. The air smelled faintly of the morning, of soap and tea, but beneath it, there was a faint, sour odor that hinted something was not right. The girl's eyes darted around the room as she whispered, "She's there? She's there," pointing to a corner where a blanket was draped over something. The officers quickly approached, their training taking over, but they were careful not to alarm the child further. What they found was alarming at first glance, yet different from what they had expected. Her mother was lying on the floor, weak and pale, barely able to lift her head. It was clear she was unwell, struggling to breathe, and the little girl's fear had been justified. One officer knelt beside the mother, checking her pulse and watching her breathing closely. The girl clung to another officer, trembling as she tried to explain what had happened. She hasn't been eating properly. She's been working all the time. I think she just collapsed," she said, her small voice shaking. She told them how her mother woke up early every day, cooked, cleaned, and sometimes went out to work extra hours just to make sure they had enough to eat and pay the bills. Her words were fragmented, innocent, but they painted a clear picture of the exhaustion and dedication of a mother who gave everything she had. The officers listened carefully, nodding as they understood the situation. One of them reassured the girl, speaking softly so as not to frighten her further. "You did the right thing. You were very brave. You knew something was wrong and came to us for help. Now we are going to make sure your mom gets better." The little girl sniffled and nodded, her hands gripping the officer's sleeve as though it was the only anchor she had in this storm. Her eyes never left her mother, filled with a mix of fear, guilt, and hope. They quickly called for an ambulance, explaining the situation in detail. The paramedics arrived within minutes, rushing into the house with medical equipment and professionalism. They moved swiftly to stabilize the mother, checking her vitals, giving her oxygen, and preparing her for transport to the hospital. The little girl watched, almost frozen, unable to move or speak. The reality of the situation was overwhelming, but seeing professionals step in provided a small measure of comfort. She whispered to herself, hoping her mother would be okay, wishing she could do more. The officers stayed close to her side, speaking softly to keep her calm. One of them offered her water and a blanket, while another knelt down to talk to her about how strong she had been to come for help. They asked gentle questions about her mother's routine, her health, and how long she had been feeling unwell. The girl answered in her soft voice, sharing small details about how her mother sometimes skipped meals, worked late into the night, and rarely rested. Each answer added to the picture of a woman who had sacrificed so much for her child. Neighbors, seeing the activity in the house, slowly gathered outside, offering what little help they could. Some brought extra blankets. Others whispered words of encouragement to the girl through the open windows. The presence of the community, quiet and supportive, added warmth to an otherwise tense situation. Even from a distance, their concern and empathy seemed to reach the little girl, giving her a sense that she was not alone in this moment. As the paramedics prepared to transport the mother to the hospital, the little girl struggled with the idea of leaving her side. She wanted to stay, to hold her hand, to make sure she was safe. The officers gently explained that she could not go in the ambulance, but that her mother would be in good hands. They reassured her that they would be with her when she returned, and that she had done everything she could to help. Slowly, she nodded, though her eyes remained full of worry and tears. Once the ambulance left, the house felt quieter, almost empty, yet the weight of what had happened lingered in every corner. The officers stayed with the little girl, helping her sit down and offering comforting words. They spoke about her bravery, explaining that even adults sometimes hesitate in emergencies, but she had acted immediately, showing courage beyond her years. The girl listened, taking in their words, and began to understand that she had done something truly important. The officers helped her tidy up a little, making sure she was comfortable and had some water to drink. They asked her about her morning, about what she noticed before running to the police, and listened carefully as she described small, seemingly ordinary things that now seemed significant. She talked about her mother's routines, how she sometimes looked tired, how she had fallen a few days ago but didn't want to worry her daughter. Each detail helped the officers understand the situation better and gave them insight into the daily struggles this small family faced. Time seemed to stretch as they waited for further updates from the hospital. The little girl remained close to the officers, occasionally glancing toward the street where the ambulance had disappeared, silently hoping for good news. The officers encouraged her to rest for a moment, telling her that her mother was strong and would get the care she needed. Slowly, the girl's breathing steadied, and her sobs became less frequent, replaced by a quiet, lingering worry. The experience left a mark not only on the little girl but also on the officers and neighbors who witnessed her courage. Even though she was young and small, her quick thinking and determination had made a real difference. She had faced fear head-on, and in doing so, she had brought help to the person she loved most in the world. Her actions were a reminder to everyone around her that courage does not come from size or age, but from the heart. As the day progressed, the neighborhood gradually returned to its usual rhythm, but the story of the little girl's bravery spread quietly through whispered conversations. People admired her courage, her instinct to act, and the love that had driven her to run to the police without hesitation. The officers remained by her side, helping her understand that while the situation had been scary, she had done everything right. In the hours that followed, she began to feel a small sense of relief. Her mother was in the hands of professionals who would take care of her. The little girl realized that she had been brave in the face of fear, that her actions had made a difference, and that even a small person could have a huge impact when they acted with love and urgency. She held on to that thought, feeling a little stronger, a little more in control, even as the worry for her mother's well-being remained. By the end of the morning, the little girl had learned an important lesson about courage, responsibility, and the power of quick action. She had faced a frightening situation alone, without hesitation, and had brought help when it was needed most. And though the road ahead for her mother's recovery was uncertain, the first and most critical step had been taken. The little girl, though young, had become a hero in her own way, proving that love and bravery could shine brightly even in the darkest of moments. The little girl sat quietly on the couch, hugging a blanket around her shoulders as the officers and neighbors tried to comfort her. The house felt different now, quieter, almost empty without her mother there. The usual sounds of cooking, cleaning, and laughter were gone, leaving behind a strange stillness. Her small hands gripped the blanket tightly as she remembered the look on her mother's face when she had collapsed. Fear still clung to her like a shadow, but she also felt a sense of pride. She had done something that mattered. The officers were patient, sitting near her, talking softly, and occasionally asking gentle questions to keep her distracted. One officer leaned down and asked about her mother's favorite things, trying to bring a small smile to her face. She whispered about how her mother loved to make tea in the mornings, how she always tried to find small ways to make her day brighter, and how she would often hum a soft tune while cleaning the house. The memories made her eyes well up with tears again, but they also reminded her of the warmth her mother brought into her life. Outside, the neighbors had started to settle back into their routines, but they kept an eye on the house, ensuring the little girl was safe and that someone could respond quickly if anything happened. A few neighbors had brought over small snacks and bottles of water, leaving them at the door with polite waves and gentle words. The community's quiet support created a cocoon of safety around the little girl, helping her feel less alone even in the absence of her mother. Inside, the girl's mind kept replaying the moments leading up to the emergency. She remembered waking up that morning and noticing her mother moving slower than usual, her face pale and tired. She had asked if everything was okay, but her mother, with a reassuring smile, had said she was fine. Even then, the girl had felt a twinge of worry but hadn't known how serious it could become. The fear she had felt running to the police now seemed to make sense in retrospect. She had acted instinctively, driven by love and the urgent need to protect her mother. As the morning wore on, the girl began to feel a little hunger and was given some crackers and juice. She ate quietly, her mind still occupied with thoughts of her mother. One officer gently reminded her that her mother was strong and that the doctors and nurses would take care of her. He spoke about the importance of rest and how she had to stay calm so she could help her mother when she returned. The little girl nodded, taking in the words, trying to steady herself, though her heart still raced with worry. Soon, news came from the hospital. The doctors had stabilized her mother and were monitoring her closely. She would need rest and care, but she was expected to recover. Hearing this, a sense of relief washed over the little girl. Tears streamed down her face again, this time from relief rather than fear. She hugged the blanket tighter, feeling a little lighter. She whispered softly to herself, "She's going to be okay. She's going to be okay." The officers smiled gently, knowing how much that simple reassurance mattered. The little girl's thoughts turned to the future. She realized that even though the morning had been terrifying, she had learned something important about courage, responsibility, and love. She had faced a frightening situation head-on and had brought help when it was most needed. Even though she was small, her actions had a huge impact. That realization made her feel a little stronger, a little braver. Later, as the sun climbed higher in the sky, one of the officers helped the girl tidy up the living room, making it feel a little more like home despite the absence of her mother. They folded blankets, arranged cushions, and swept the floor lightly. The girl helped where she could, feeling a sense of control returning to her life. The small acts of order and care helped soothe her mind, giving her a feeling that she could contribute even when scared and uncertain. The neighbors continued to offer support, knocking gently on the door to check on her or to leave small gifts of food and supplies. The girl felt the warmth of the community surrounding her, and it reminded her that even in frightening moments, she was not alone. She began to understand that people cared for her and her mother, that there were others who were willing to step in when help was needed. It was a comforting thought, one that slowly eased the tension in her chest. Throughout the day, the girl's imagination wandered as she thought about how quickly everything had changed. One moment, it had been a normal morning, and the next, it had turned into an emergency that required police and paramedics. She replayed every step in her mind. The moment she realized her mother was unwell, the rush to the police station, the officers following her back to the house. Each memory was vivid, and each brought a mix of fear, pride, and relief. She realized that even though she had been scared, she had acted without hesitation, and that bravery had made a real difference. The officers continued to sit with her, occasionally sharing stories of other children who had shown courage in difficult situations. These stories, told in simple words, helped the little girl feel connected to others who had faced fear and acted wisely. She listened intently, learning that being brave didn't mean not being afraid. It meant taking action even when fear was present. The words stayed with her, becoming a quiet source of strength. As evening approached, the little girl started to feel tired. The adrenaline from the morning's events was wearing off, leaving her body and mind exhausted. One of the officers gently suggested she rest, and she agreed, curling up on the couch with the blanket wrapped around her. Her eyes fluttered closed, and she drifted into a light sleep, her thoughts filled with hope that her mother would soon be home, safe and healthy. Even in her sleep, the morning's events replayed in her mind. She dreamed of running through the streets, of the officers following her, and of the moment she saw her mother lying on the floor. But the dreams were mixed with hope, her mother smiling, strong and healthy, and the community gathering to support them. These dreams reflected both her fear and her courage, the emotions that had defined her day. The officers took turns watching over her, ensuring she was safe while giving her the space to rest. They admired her resilience, the way she had faced a terrifying situation and acted with love and determination. They understood that even though she was small, she had shown an extraordinary capacity for courage and quick thinking. It was a reminder that heroism often comes in the most unexpected forms, from those we might least expect. Night fell, and the little girl slept peacefully, the blanket wrapped tightly around her. The house was quiet once more, but the echoes of the day remained. Echoes of fear, courage, love, and relief. The officers remained nearby, keeping watch, and the neighbors respected the quiet, leaving the family space to rest while remaining ready to help if needed. The little girl's bravery had changed the course of the day, and now, as she slept, the sense of hope began to take root in her young heart. Through it all, the little girl learned a profound lesson: that love could inspire courage, and courage could bring about change even in the face of fear. She understood that her actions had been important, that she had made a difference, and that she could face challenges with strength, no matter her size. This lesson, learned through experience rather than words, would stay with her forever, shaping her understanding of herself and the world around her. By the end of the day, the little girl had grown in ways that were invisible to the eye but monumental in the heart. She had faced fear, acted with bravery, and witnessed the power of community and support. The events of the morning and the day that followed would remain with her, a story of courage and love that would shape her for years to come. Even as she slept, the knowledge of what she had done, and the hope for what was to come, filled her dreams with light. The morning after her mother was taken to the hospital, the little girl woke up to a quiet house. The stillness felt strange at first, but she slowly realized that for the first time, she had space to think about everything that had happened. The previous day's panic and fear still lingered in her mind, but now there was also a growing sense of hope. Her mother had received help, and the paramedics had promised she was strong and would recover. That thought gave her comfort as she sat on the small couch, hugging her knees and staring out the window. The officers had checked in on her early, making sure she had eaten and slept, and they had left instructions for neighbors to keep an eye on her throughout the day. She appreciated the kindness of the community. It was remarkable how strangers could become supportive figures so quickly when needed. A neighbor knocked softly on the door, offering a warm smile and a small plate of breakfast. The little girl smiled back shyly, grateful for the gesture, and took the food. It was a small thing, but it reminded her that even in scary situations, there were people who cared. While she ate, her mind wandered back to her mother. She thought about all the early mornings, the late nights, the meals she had skipped, and the work she had done to make sure her daughter had everything she needed. The girl realized how much her mother had sacrificed and how brave she had been, facing challenges quietly and without complaint. This understanding brought a mixture of sadness and admiration. She wished she could do more to help, to make her mother's life easier. Throughout the day, the officers continued to check in. They asked if she wanted to play a small game to take her mind off the worry or if she wanted to talk about her feelings. She chose to talk, telling them stories of her mother's life, the small things she loved, and the moments that made their life together special. She spoke about their simple routines, the quiet evenings they spent together, and the small acts of care that her mother had always shown. The officers listened intently, encouraging her to share, knowing that talking was a way to process the intense emotions she was feeling. Meanwhile, the neighbors had started to organize support for the family. Some offered to help with chores in the house while the little girl's mother was in the hospital. Others offered meals or groceries, wanting to ease the burden on the young girl and her family. The little girl watched these acts of kindness with wide eyes. She had never imagined that so many people could care so much about them. She felt a warmth in her chest, realizing that she was not alone, and that her mother's love had inspired others to show their own. The little girl spent much of the afternoon drawing pictures for her mother. She picked up crayons and paper, her small hands moving carefully, creating colorful drawings of flowers, the sun, and her mother smiling. Each picture was a message of love and hope. She planned to take them to the hospital when her mother was ready for visitors. Making the drawings helped her feel connected to her mother, even when they were apart. It was a way to express her love and to remind herself that her mother would be okay. As the day went on, the little girl began to think about the moment when she had run to the police. She remembered the fear, the rush of adrenaline, and the determination that had carried her forward. She realized that her bravery had made a real difference. The thought filled her with pride. She had faced a scary situation, acted quickly, and helped save her mother. It was a powerful realization for someone so young. She began to understand that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. The officers stayed close, sharing simple stories about other children who had faced challenges and acted bravely. These stories helped the little girl feel less alone in her experiences. She listened carefully, imagining herself as the hero in her own story, and began to see herself as capable of handling difficult situations. The officers emphasized that asking for help, as she had done, was also a form of bravery. They praised her for recognizing that she needed support and for seeking it without hesitation. In the evening, the little girl helped tidy up the house. She put away toys, folded blankets, and straightened cushions. Each small act made her feel useful and gave her a sense of control over the situation. She realized that even when life felt overwhelming, she could contribute in meaningful ways. The house began to feel more welcoming and less empty, and the little girl felt a small sense of accomplishment. It was comforting to create a space that reflected care and love, even while her mother was away. As night approached, the little girl sat by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She thought about her mother's bravery, the officer's support, and the neighbor's kindness. The world, despite its dangers and challenges, also held beauty and compassion. She understood that she was part of a community that cared for her, and that gave her strength. She whispered a quiet promise to herself that she would continue to be brave and loving, just like her mother. The little girl's thoughts drifted to the future. She imagined the day her mother would come home, healthy and strong. She pictured the smiles, the hugs, and the shared laughter. She thought about how she would tell her mother about the community's support, the drawings she had made, and the courage she had shown. These thoughts brought a sense of hope and anticipation, helping her to focus on positive outcomes rather than the fear of the unknown. The officers checked in one last time before nightfall, reassuring the little girl that her mother was safe and that the medical team was taking excellent care of her. They reminded her to rest, eat well, and try to stay calm. The girl nodded, feeling reassured by their words. She felt a deep sense of gratitude for the adults who had guided and protected her through the frightening events of the past day. As she settled into bed that night, the little girl reflected on everything she had experienced. She thought about the panic of the morning, the relief of finding help, the kindness of strangers, and the bravery she had discovered within herself. Her heart was full of complex emotions: fear, relief, pride, and love. But above all, there was hope. She understood that challenges were a part of life, but that love, courage, and community could make even the hardest moments bearable. The little girl drifted off to sleep, her dreams filled with images of her mother recovering, the community supporting her, and her own courage shining brightly. The night was quiet, but her heart was full. She knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength and love to face them. And in that knowledge, she found peace and hope, ready to continue her journey with courage and resilience. The day her mother came home was a day the little girl had been dreaming about for weeks. She woke early, filled with excitement and nervous anticipation. The house felt brighter somehow, as if the walls themselves knew that something important was about to happen. She had helped tidy up the previous day, and now everything was in its place, ready to welcome her mother back. Her small hands fidgeted as she arranged a few flowers she had picked from the garden, wanting everything to look perfect. Today was more than a reunion. It was a celebration of bravery, love, and resilience. When the ambulance pulled up in front of the house, the little girl ran outside without hesitation. The doors opened, and her mother stepped out, supported by the paramedics. She looked tired, but there was a glow of relief and gratitude in her eyes. The little girl ran forward, throwing her arms around her mother's waist. Tears streamed down both of their faces, and for a few moments, nothing else mattered. The fear, the panic, and the uncertainty of the past days melted away into a warm embrace that spoke of love, trust, and the bond they shared. The officers who had helped the little girl over the past days were there as well, smiling from a distance. They had been witnesses to the bravery of a small child who had acted with courage and love beyond her years. They watched as mother and daughter held each other, knowing that the moment was precious and life-changing. The neighbors gathered quietly, offering soft congratulations and kind words. The atmosphere was filled with warmth, a testament to the support of the community that had rallied around the family when it mattered most. Inside the house, The mother rested while the little girl fussed over small details, wanting everything to be perfect. She made tea, set out a plate of snacks, and arranged the flowers she had picked. Her mother watched, smiling softly, her heart full of pride for the young child who had saved her life. She held her daughter close, whispering words of gratitude and love. The little girl listened, soaking in every word, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and happiness. She had acted courageously, and now she could see the tangible results of her bravery. Over the next few days, the mother slowly regained her strength. The little girl stayed close, helping with small tasks, bringing water, and ensuring her mother rested. Their bond deepened, strengthened by the shared experience of fear, courage, and recovery. The mother was amazed at the resilience and bravery her daughter had shown, and she made a promise to herself to ensure her child never had to face such danger alone again. She also realized how much she had relied on her daughter's love and quick thinking, and it humbled her in ways she hadn't expected. The community continued to offer support, providing meals, groceries, and small acts of kindness. The little girl learned that when people see bravery and love, they are often inspired to act with kindness themselves. She began to understand the power of community, and how acts of courage and love could ripple outward, creating change in ways that were sometimes unexpected. The experience became a life lesson, teaching her about compassion, support, and the importance of looking out for one another. As her mother recovered, the little girl also reflected on her own growth. She had faced fear, acted decisively, and witnessed the impact of her actions. She realized that bravery was not about never feeling afraid, but about taking action even when afraid. She also understood that love could drive people to do extraordinary things, and that her mother's love for her had been a guiding force, just as her love had guided her to seek help. These lessons would stay with her, shaping her understanding of herself and the world. The mother and daughter spent quiet evenings together, sharing stories, playing simple games, and enjoying the small joys of everyday life. Each day was a reminder that life, though sometimes unpredictable and challenging, was also filled with moments of beauty, love, and connection. The little girl learned to appreciate the small things: the warmth of a hug, the taste of a favorite snack, the sound of laughter. These simple joys became treasures, reinforcing the importance of family and love. The officers checked in occasionally, ensuring that everything was going smoothly. They praised the little girl again for her bravery, reminding her that her actions had saved her mother's life. The little girl smiled, a shy but proud smile, knowing that she had done something meaningful. She understood that even though she was young, her actions mattered, and that she could make a difference in the world. This realization gave her a sense of confidence and purpose that would continue to grow as she faced future challenges. Neighbors continued to be a quiet presence, showing that support and care could last beyond the immediate crisis. Some would stop by for a chat, others would leave small gifts or baked goods. The little girl began to understand that kindness was contagious, and that the love and support of a community could make difficult situations easier to bear. She felt grateful for the people around her, for their willingness to help, and for the lessons they were teaching her about compassion and humanity. As weeks passed, the mother regained her strength fully, and life slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. The little girl had grown in confidence and resilience. She knew that challenges could come unexpectedly, but she also knew that courage, love, and support could help overcome them. The family's bond was stronger than ever, built on shared experiences of fear, bravery, and care. They had faced a crisis together and had come out stronger on the other side. The story of the little girl and her mother became known among neighbors and friends, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of courage, love, and resilience. It served as a reminder that even the smallest people could have the biggest impact, and that love could inspire extraordinary bravery. The little girl's actions had not only saved her mother, but had also inspired those around her, showing the power of caring, courage, and quick thinking. The mother often told her daughter how proud she was, and the little girl felt a deep sense of pride in herself as well. She had faced a frightening situation, acted with bravery, and helped someone she loved more than anything. She had learned lessons about courage, responsibility, and the importance of community. She had also learned that love could give strength in the most difficult moments. These lessons would guide her throughout her life, shaping her into someone compassionate, brave, and wise beyond her years. One quiet evening, as the sun set and cast a warm glow across the small house, the mother and daughter sat together, holding hands. They reflected on the events that had changed their lives and shared hopes for the future. They spoke about dreams, plans, and simple joys, knowing that life could be unpredictable but also beautiful. The little girl realized that courage, love, and kindness could guide her through any challenge. She felt a sense of peace, knowing that together, they could face whatever came next. The mother and daughter's story became a symbol of hope for their community. People admired the bravery of the child and the resilience of the mother. They saw how love and courage could overcome fear and uncertainty, and how a small act of bravery could ripple outward to create positive change. The little girl had not only saved her mother, but had also inspired everyone who heard her story. It was a reminder that even in difficult times, hope, love, and courage could prevail. Life continued, filled with everyday routines, small joys, and the comfort of family and community. The little girl grew with the knowledge that she was capable of facing challenges and making a difference. Her mother's recovery was a constant reminder of the power of love and the importance of paying attention to those we care about. Together, they moved forward, stronger, braver, and more connected than ever. Their bond, forged through fear, courage, and love, would remain unbreakable for the rest of their lives.